You're listening to www.integralnaked.org.
I'm a Naropa student,
Uh-huh.
and I just read an article of yours in class, and it was referring to translation
Yeah.
and transformation.
Yeah.
And according to the article, you were saying how transformation is more elite. You know, there's such a small percentage of
Yeah.
the world that has achieved that.
Yeah.
And my question is, must we go through all that pain
Yeah.
and identity crisis of translation to reach that transformation?
Yeah.
And of course, meditation is like the quick route.
Can help, yeah.
But do we have to have both of them? Can we just have transformation?
Yeah.
And so, just, I guess, a little more about that process.
What do you think?
I think that, I do think in rare instances, we can have transformation without translation.
Yeah.
I think that the percentage is very small,
Pretty small.
but I think most certainly it is possible.
Yeah.
I think it has to start when you're very young.
Yeah.
And when you're seeking, trying to find your identity with the world, where you fit in,
Yeah.
that piece in the puzzle.
Yeah.
And I think that if you have an open heart and you live from that state of witness and the observer
Yeah.
from a young age, that certainly you can kind of
Gonna help a
bypass.
lot. Yeah. Okay. Good. Translation and transformation. Most of you are aware that we use those words in a little bit of a technical way, which is if you think of development as, it has a lot of different dimensions, but we can think of it as having a vertical dimension and a horizontal dimension and a breadth dimension and so on. But vertically is, any move vertically we just define as transformation, and any move horizontally we define as translation. Now, translation is going on all the time. And so right now we're translating, and one of the things that's so important about translation, for those of you who have looked at some of the developmental models, developmental studies give you the altitude at which people are flying, basically. It's their bandwidth. And one of the things that we've learned, and that flatland psychology still do not get, and it's devastating to not take this stuff into account, is that the vertical dimensions have profoundly different worldviews at each of them. You can think of levels of consciousness. You can think of, if you want to, it's not quite right, but it's close enough and can certainly be used. You can think of the 7 chakras, the 7 fundamental levels of being and energy and awareness, and they have a different worldview. So the worldview from the 2nd chakra, right, is the worldview of, let's say, democratic presidents who, okay, just waiting to see who got that. Second chakra is emotional, sexual, genital stuff. I had in mind Bill Clinton, of course, but third chakra, everybody knows these things, is power. In a positive sense, it's intentionality. It's a capacity for guts. It's a capacity for self-empowerment. So it's very important on the positive side. And every level has its healthy and unhealthy. So positive empowerment can come from this. The downside, of course, is just power over, the sort of Nietzschean kind of thing. And then heart chakra, and of course positive and negatives about that. And so you can think of these vertical dimensions, and they are extremely important. You have somebody talking mythic language and put them in with somebody talking pluralistic, it's all Greek. People are not fundamentally understanding each other. And skillful means, which we've all kind of pledged to one way or another, if you don't understand the altitude that somebody's flying at, well, you're flying at 50,000 feet and they're flying at 30,000 feet. And it's just, ships or planes that miss in the night entirely. So understanding the rich dimensionality of the psyche, it's not just a flatland playing board where you put in one view over here and contrast it with one view over here. So flatland psychology says we have a bad belief structure. The bad belief structure is Newtonian, Cartesian, patriarchal, analytic, divisive, cognitive, rational, all the dirty words. And then we have to get rid of that paradigm and come with a new paradigm. The new paradigm is caring, sharing, holistic, matrifocal, reconnects with the wisdom of the indigenous tribes. Most of the statements I just made about it are empirically not true. We have an enormous amount of evidence. It's just not true. But the thing that I want to sort of emphasize is that we really have to get over the notion of what we can think of as a one-stop total transformation cure, which is that things are going bad now, introduce the new paradigm, everybody transforms, and then everybody's better. Including, apparently, kids when they're born. They're born into, they're turquoise from the time they're born, and it's just kind of a cool trick. And get back to, incidentally, I know it sounds funny because I'm caricaturing it, but I believed this. I think everybody, when you first come into this field, that's one of the things that we try to get a handle on because it's so shocking to realize that, for the most part, the ideas that you were brought up with till you're around 20, they're all kind of useful in the, pragmatic, if you want to build a bridge, or if you want to, recite poetry, or if you want to criticize every white male that ever lived, then you can do that, and that's cool. There's a lot of white men are actually claiming that they're Canadians, but that's that works for a lot of us. And then all of a sudden you find that there are paths of liberation. All of a sudden, every major culture has had some small percentage, always less than 1%, mostly, that knew that if you look within your mind and very, very steadily keep looking, sooner or later you will find God. Now, that is such a unanimous voice of the mystics from the different cultures. It's not to downplay their differences. Of course, if you come from different cultures with different philosophical backgrounds and so on, you're going to word all of this quite differently. But what's so striking about it is still the astonishing general similarity that you hear the world over. That there are these paths of liberation. There are ways to wake up. So transformation, though, in order to have this waking up, it's not just this one step, old paradigm to new paradigm. We actually look at, for example, real development has, and just to use Jean Gebser, has at least 6 major paradigms. So there's an archaic paradigm, there's a magical paradigm, there's a mythical paradigm, there's a rational paradigm, there's a pluralistic, there's an integral, and then there's the actual higher structures, the super integral. Integral just means integrating. So whatever the highest stage is, most researchers call that integral. It's a sliding scale. Molecules are more integral than atoms. Cells are more integral than molecules. So integral it's a relative term. So, and this does tie in with the question about translation and transformation. Once you get over the notion that it's one step, old paradigm, new paradigm, pow, and realize that there are these, 5, 6, 7 major paradigm transformations that have to occur. Then you start looking at what can help with that. And meditation certainly leads the list of that. There's some other things that can be done. But that's very important. Translation, in the meantime, particularly the boomer generation, is just everything has to be transformation. So it's conscious and transformation. So there's conscious parenting, conscious walking, conscious teeth brushing, conscious, we know all this, we're all conscious. And now it's conscious aging, conscious incontinence, and I like to be present for that, so I try to be as conscious as I can. And the whole notion about the idea that there's we're doing, conscious parenting implies that every generation prior to us did unconscious parenting, unconscious aging, and unconscious incontinence. So we think transformation is everything. But let's say you go ahead and transform to the new paradigm, or whatever it is you're transforming to. At some point, you stop transforming and you live. So the idea that I'm constantly transforming, is not really a good way to look at what we might be doing. Clearly, you want to spend some time on it. But there's also the point is that the ultimate aim of transformation is to find that consciousness that cannot be reached by transformation. Can't be reached. You already have it. You can't reach I amness. It's listening to this. It's like going out and say, today I'm going to discover my feet and find my feet. It's kind of meaningless. So we want to be real careful about always being on the transformative path. Because sooner or later, you just stop and live. And that's translation then. So the question is, the way it was worded is, can you sort of bypass translation or downplay it and get to transformation? And the answer is, in some sense, of course you can. But it's basically what happens is, the way you transform is you do healthy translation. And the more things you do to make translation healthy, the more likely you'll transform. Generally, when you move to a new stage, and I'll just do this very briefly, you can't just go rushing through it. When you get to a new stage of development, you have to taste it, you have to live it. You're sort of there, it's there for a reason. It's a major, major level of existence and reality. If you're looking at going through archaic is generally, in today's world, about the first year of life. Magic is about, on average, 1 to 3 for infants. Mythic starts to come in around 4 or 5 and lasts right into about 7, 8, 9. Rational starts to emerge in adolescence, or certainly can, and generally lasts through adolescence into early 20s, when, if development continues, pluralism can come in. What you find with mythic is that those are traditional values. What you're looking at with rational is modern values, and pluralism is postmodern. So you have the 3 biggest values in the culture wars. Traditional values versus modern versus postmodern. And that's tearing academia up. Absolutely tearing it up. And it has for the past 25 years. Postmodernism has finally been declared dead, although what it did is it left in its wake incalculable damage in certain ways, but also some very, very important insights in terms of the situatedness and the embeddedness and the contextualism of knowledge. So all of that's very positive, but most people are so confused now in academia, they don't know which way is up. There is rumblings about now an integral age. And I believe that reflects demographics. The next stage of development, literally, is integral. And I believe that we're moving into that, which is why all of a sudden, I mean, even using my work as an example, because it can be pretty academic, the interest in it has just really surged. And I've been fortunate to have a pretty good readership from the beginning. But there's the number of important people in various fields that are adopting this now is really amazing. It's just truly amazing. And so we're trying to allow that to happen with Integral Institute and facilitate that to some degree. But in terms of transformation, yeah, you definitely want to work on it if that's what you've decided. But don't beat yourself up if you don't get up every day and, give yourself a metaphysical hernia. It's just, you don't have to get that aggressive about it. We actually have, just so you know, and even in the Integral Life Practice starter kit I was mentioning, for all of the major practices, we have a 1-minute module. It's just that simple. We go, okay, look, if you can't deal with the whole thing, just do this 1-minute thing. We really just, it's right down to the microwave instant coffee spiritual practice. And so we have that. And then we also have extremely detailed ones if you want to spend 5 hours a day on it. But making transformation as painless as possible is certainly one of the things that we want to do. But we also want to remind people sooner or later, live. And don't always be at odds with yourself by trying to improve yourself. So a good dose of that, absolutely. But also keep an eye on what you're doing to yourself.